Hello and welcome to another executive interview here from Freetrade. I'm Dan Lane. A quick reminder to sign up to our daily market newsletter, Honey, for all of our articles and all of our executive interviews. And with that said, I will introduce our guest today, Marcus Hughes, Managing Director for Europe at Coinbase. Marcus, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
So we've sourced all our questions here from the Freetrade Community Forum. I thought we'd start with Coinbase itself. What do you do and what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, so effectively we operate a platform which makes it easy to buy and sell crypto assets and engage with a whole range of other services that we're launching, which really allow access to the kind of crypto ecosystem. So we want to make crypto accessible, we want to make it easy to use, and we're also kind of a trusted place where you can kind of store your crypto assets and have confidence that they're being held securely. And I think it's a really exciting time for the kind of crypto ecosystem at the moment. It's really, I always like to say it's really early days. We're really just at the beginning. I'm really excited to kind of see what the future holds in this space.
Yeah, you say early days. It's funny, isn't it? I saw a video there where Brian, the CEO, said he started Coinbase at maybe when Bitcoin was maybe at like $2. Just how much as time has come on since then. Now, if we think about recent announcements for Coinbase, you came to the stock market through a direct listing. Take us through your decision there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was something that was kind of both Brian and the executive team felt was the right way for a kind of crypto company to kind of go public. It was kind of the ability for the public to have open and free access to shares in the same way as institutional investors would have. I think it's a really interesting time for the whole industry. I mean, obviously Coinbase kind of being the first big name to go public is exciting. It's great for us. We have this kind of mission to build an open financial system. We have very big ambitions in terms of what we want to achieve. I think going public is one step in that journey. And it seems strange to say it's early days when we've been operating since 2012. But of course, back in 2012, we were a place where you could buy and sell Bitcoin, and that was it. And now you're looking at this huge array of services that could be facilitated by crypto, so-called finance 2.0. And it's that kind of aspect that really kind of captures my imagination. The thought that you're providing access to financial services to people around the world that may have no access to a traditional bank account. So I think the sky's the limit in terms of kind of where crypto can go. But the reality is we're still in the relatively early days, and the question is how many other use cases that haven't even been created yet will be imagined in crypto. And I think that's what makes this a really interesting sector.
Yeah. And you mentioned those big ambitions, but I guess if we break that down and think about right now, what's on your plate right now? What are some of the big projects you're working on?
Yeah, so I think scaling ourselves internationally obviously is really important, and that's in the context of crypto regulation coming in many countries around the world. That's something we've advocated for from the very early days. Our aim is to kind of be the most trusted player in the crypto space, and so having that regulatory framework, the right kind of regulation, I hasten to add, I think is really important for providing kind of confidence to both retail and institutional investors. And so, crypto scaling internationally is a huge part of that. Building what we refer to as this kind of open financial system. I think what's also a kind of real focus for us is the breadth of kind of products and services that we'll be offering. And I touched on the kind of utility phase, and this is the kind of concept that crypto can kind of power and enable a whole range of interesting use cases, whether that's decentralized lending or earning yield on crypto assets, for example. There's a whole range of use cases that are just starting to emerge, and I think there'll be a huge focus there on understanding. Sure, a lot of people go into crypto, they want to perhaps speculate on the price of Bitcoin. That's one use case. But I think what we'll see over time is a whole range of very interesting use cases emerge for crypto aside from pure kind of investment, and it's that I think we're kind of very, very focused on.
Yeah, I was maybe going to touch on this later, but it sounds like a good time to talk about it now. I mean, crypto, there's been this kind of, I think, a pretty lazy narrative that we have to get through the excitement until we find the use case, or until it becomes a stable currency, and it's about waiting. But it seems to be, from my point of view, there seems to be a bit of a fork in the road where people are just saying, I'm not going to wait for that. There are definite use cases now, and we're going to explore those. Is it a case that there are those use cases on one fork and there's the investment side on another, the speculation side? Can they coexist? Is that how you see it playing out?
I think they can absolutely coexist. I mean, I think there are a whole range of reasons why people come into crypto now. Some is just pure investment. You buy Bitcoin, you speculate that the value may increase. Others, are building a whole bunch of very, very interesting products, and services using crypto effectively, tokens to kind of power those products and services. So whether it's Ethereum, the concept of like a decentralized world computer, or peer-to-peer lending use cases, remittance use cases. I think there are many of these that will emerge, and I think we're beginning to see what those look like. I think there'll be a flurry of continued activity here, and I think the volatility. We can't get away from the fact that a number of these assets have experienced a lot of volatility in the past, and I'm sure that will continue for some time to come. I think as we see the market mature, as we see the ecosystem mature, more players come in, more traditional players dip their toe in the water of crypto. We will see these use cases emerge with a high degree of kind of certainty and understanding. But I do think that these things can coexist. And I'll give you another example of where I think there could be a kind of fork, but things could continue to operate together. You have kind of central bank digital currencies, either being launched or already launched in a number of countries. Now, some would argue, well, those don't really embrace the true ethos of crypto. You're still at the mercy of interest rates, monetary policy of a central bank. But that doesn't mean that they can't exist, alongside, USDC or, Bitcoin or another asset. So I think there's kind of everything to play for in many ways. There's so many interesting use cases coming up, and I do think that they can coexist. I don't think crypto, is going to tear up the traditional finance system overnight, but I do think it could provide a very compelling alternative in many ways to how you can do things. And that's what I think is so interesting about crypto. It's reimagining how you achieve many things, rather than traditional fintech will be looking at improving, maybe making it cheaper or easier. Crypto is slightly more revolutionary in the way it approaches things. It's saying actually there's this decentralized way of looking at things, and I think that's really, really compelling.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the kind of the central banks getting involved. We saw Jay Powell maybe even tabling discussions around it, and I think in Nebraska there's the bills going through to hopefully create the world's first crypto bank. So yeah, I mean these are the people and these are the kind of government levels who were maybe terrified of crypto maybe 5 years ago. They're kind of slowly turning around to embrace it. I think one big difference, again, maybe from the rise last time in 2017, is kind of the institutional investors getting involved this time. What's changed there? Why have they suddenly come around?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a kind of running joke in the kind of crypto industry that mass institutional take-up is just around the corner, and people would joke, oh well, it still hasn't come. I think it definitely well and truly has arrived now. That would be the first point I'd make. I think we're talking traditional institutions such as hedge funds and pension funds, and corporates, now putting crypto on their balance sheet. Again, overnight we're not going to find that all of a sudden the institutions fully into crypto, 100% confident in everything related to crypto. I think it's a journey. It's a process of kind of educating institutional investors, getting them comfortable with what is crypto, what's the underlying technology, what are the use cases, how do you safely and securely custody crypto assets, which is a unique issue for institutions compared to the kind of traditional finance world, looking at kind of securities where custody of securities is kind of well established and understood. So I think there's a lot of education. It goes back to the point I kind of made previously around demystifying the space. But undoubtedly, we're seeing traditional institutional take-up increase significantly, and I think that will be a continued pattern. And I don't think it'll happen overnight. I think it's a question of institutions getting familiar and comfortable with these assets. I think what we're also seeing is underlying client demand. So, for example, private wealth management firms getting that underlying demand from their clients that they want to allocate perhaps a portion of their portfolio to crypto. And those calls are too strong to resist, and it's that is a way that some institutions are first kind of coming to us, because they need to service that client demand. So yeah, I think it's good to see both on the retail and the institutional side a very strong kind of growth in uptake and interests, and we'll be very interested to see how that kind of evolves as institutions kind of get a bit more comfortable with the sector. And I think going back to the earlier point, I think it's that unfamiliarity that we need to get over, right? How do we kind of create an understanding of what crypto is about and what it's powering, and kind of break down some of those barriers to understanding? And that's a really important role, I think, for the Coinbases of the world.
I think, Europe is your patch. Are you say is that the biggest barrier? Is this kind of unfamiliarity, is this caution in Europe as opposed to the US? Or what are the differences that you're finding in global markets towards crypto?
Yeah, I mean, of course, even within Europe, you have a lot of very kind of discrete markets. So, the UK and Germany might be quite different to kind of Greece and Italy. And so I caution somewhat against generalization, but I do think, it's a kind of Europe-wide question, probably global question of how do we inform and educate? How do we explain why crypto is interesting and why people should kind of dip their toe in the water there? That's an important part of what we do. I think the other aspect is regulation as well. So we see MiCA, Europe-wide crypto regulation coming in. Seems kind of pretty sensibly, framed as a first kind of foundational start to kind of crypto regulation. I think that's that's good to see. As I say, we've advocated for kind of regulation. I think it provides confidence, to the public. It provides confidence to institutional players as well. And I think we'll see that kind of evolve over time. And it's all these various different kind of moving parts coming together to build that understanding and confidence, which will obviously happen over time.
And I mean, okay, so turning to Coinbase in particular now, what's the ideal state you want to be in? What service would you offer? Who would you offer them to? What can we expect from Coinbase now?
Yeah, so if you look at kind of what our ambitions are, I mean, we've talked about a kind of mission statement, which is kind of the grand kind of build an open financial system. I methat fundamentally is what we want to create. We want to be able to kind of power this kind of open financial system, and that means access for everyone to finance. And the statistics are always, I find, incredible. You have many countries in the world where smartphone penetration, is 80% plus, and yet vast majority of people have no access to bank accounts. So if you look at what can crypto help to solve, well, it can democratize, access to finance at the fundamental level. If you look at kind of how do we fit into that, well, I see Coinbase as that kind of trusted player at the center of the crypto ecosystem, helping to facilitate and power all these various different services that will form part of that kind of ecosystem. And I think that, really is where we see ourselves, not just the ability to kind of buy or sell kind of assets, but also helping businesses that want to accept crypto payments, or businesses that want to kind of build something, that's powered by crypto, and that we have this, the capability to help them do that. So I think there's a range of ways in which we can kind of help both crypto businesses and traditional businesses, leverage the power of kind of crypto. And I think that's, if I had to be succinct, that's how I'd frame where I see Coinbase.
And are there any plans to diversify away from kind of a predominantly trading fee-based revenue model? Because that's what you're using at the minute, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think our CFO, Alicia, has talked to this in our most recent earnings, talking about, obviously, today we're pretty heavily dependent upon trading revenue. What I would say is kind of month on month, we are diversifying away from pure trading revenue dependence. As I touched on previously, the products and services that we offer are becoming broader. They're not all dependent upon kind of trading fee revenue. So I do think you'll see that kind of pattern moving away from that dependency over time. It won't happen overnight. As I say, it's the level of maturity of the ecosystem is, I don't think, quite there yet in terms of the breadth of the products and services, but that's changing on a kind of weekly basis. And so I would kind of say, watch this space. We've got a lot of exciting kind of products in the pipeline, and I do think you'll see that movement away from such a dependence on trading fee revenue over time.
And a lot of investors, either prospective people watching this or people who maybe bought in recently, will be thinking, okay, well, what's next? What should I be watching with Coinbase? Because it seems like there's so much opportunity out there. What's kind of the near term? What should they be watching for in the near term, as opposed to thinking, well, actually, the world is our oyster, but that can also breed a sense of, well, I actually don't know what's going to happen at all then.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. So I think, look, our aim has always been to be the kind of trusted operator, right, at the center of the ecosystem. I've touched on regulation and why we think that's important. So you can look for us looking to engage with regulators globally, look to get licensed where applicable in countries, in a number of key countries around the world. I think that's a natural trend within the kind of crypto space, and I view that as a great sign that the system is kind of maturing. I think we talked about diversification of revenue away from trading fee revenue, so a range of products and services that aren't dependent on trading fee revenue. And there are a lot of interesting use cases emerging for what people might want to do. They might want to lend their crypto out to earn a return, for example. They might want to borrow there's a whole range of different kind of services that I think you'll see expand. I mean, one example of where services have been expanding recently is in kind of connection with staking. So proof of stake crypto assets, without wishing to go down too much of a technical rabbit hole, different validation mechanism for transactions. So instead of proof of work, proof of stake involves staking, and effectively you earn a return, all the staking rewards, as we term them, from staking your assets. So you hold assets on the platform, and you effectively earn a kind of passive return from doing that. That's one example of the kind of service I think you'll see, is increasingly kind of offering. We also have a number of what we call kind of earn campaigns, where again, combining that concept of earning kind of a reward and the educational aspects of what we're trying to do, demystify and educate. You can come onto the platform, there may be a new asset that we've launched. You can earn a certain number of dollars of that asset for free for watching an informational short video and answering a question. So again, we're keen to engage people, bring them in, kind of help demystify and explain why crypto is, is compelling and what these different use cases are. And there's so many exciting assets out there right now, powering really interesting use cases that, bringing those to people and helping, provide ease of access to those is kind of part of what we want to do.
Marcus, I could talk to you about this all day, but I think that's all we have time for. I don't want to keep you. Thanks very much for joining us.
That's a pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for watching. If you'd like to keep up with more interviews and our daily market newsletter, be sure to sign up to Honey. The link's in the... Bye for now.